Dr. Neehall has treated many patients
Have you
for
been
many
stressed,
disorders
anxious,
over
or
a long
worried?
period of time. Today,
Have
she
you felt
talks about
pangs of
languishing.
loneliness in
What
recent
is languishing?
times? Are you longing for
Languishing
greater
is a
connection
term
with
that
others in
became
the world
popular
around you?
in April of
In a
2021,
phrase, are
Alan,
you
when
looking for
psychologist
happiness?
Adam Grant wrote an
You are not
article in the
alone.
New York Times entitled,
Millions of others
"There's
are
a name for
seeking
the
this
blah
feeling
you're
of
feeling.
spiritual,
It's
mental,
called
and
languishing.
physical wellness too.
It's the mood
This
of
podcast
2021.
explores
I
the
would reckon
underlying
it's still
causes
the
of
mood of
unhappiness
2023,
and shares
Alan.
with us the secrets
Life
of
is at
rewriting the
once
frequent thoughts
too
and
overwhelming
redirecting the common
and not
behaviors that
sufficiently
keep us in that
engaging.
state.
We might
Join forensic
experience
psychologist
unending
and
waves of
best-selling author
pandemic
Dr.
panic,
Neehall and her
which
guests
contribute
as
to
they
our
dive deep in the realm
inability
of
to be fully
psychological
present.
wellness and explore
We feel
ways of finding
apathetic,
happiness on
restless,
demand.
unsettled, showing
Okay,
a lack
I'm
of
Alan
interest
Edwards.
in life.
Welcome to this podcast. Dr. JoAn
The things that
Neehall
used to
is a
give us
clinical
joy no longer give us
psychologist,
joy.
and she's written a
Mentally,
Wall
you're
Street
not feeling
Journal
good or
best-selling
bad,
book
just
called
blah.
Happy is the New Healthy.
The lack of focus
Dr. Neehall
makes
has treated
every
many
task you
patients
engage
for
in
many
even
disorders
that
over
more hard
a long period
or
of time.
difficult.
Today, she
For
talks
some
about
people, the
languishing.
new
What
normal
is
is
languishing?
alternating between feelings of fatigue.
Languishing is a
and lack
term
of
that became
motivation to
popular in
experiencing
April of
quick bursts of
2021,
energy
Alan,
when
when
starting
psychologist
something new.
Adam Grant
Only to feel
wrote an article in the
unmotivated
New
again
York Times
soon
entitled,
after. There's a name for the blah
You
you're
might
feeling.
be asking
It's
yourself,
called languishing.
why do I need to do this?
It's the
Or
mood
what's
of
the point?
2021. I
You know
reckon
that you're
it's
not
still the
functioning
mood of
at full
2023,
capacity.
Alan.
You might
Life
have been
is
an
at once
extrovert, a
too
bubbly type,
overwhelming
and now you're just
and
finding
not
yourself
sufficiently
withdrawing.
engaging.
According
We
to
might
Corey
experience
Keyes,
unending waves of
actually
pandemic
identified the
panic,
term
which
languishing,
contribute to our
it's emptiness
inability
and
to be fully
stagnation,
present,
constituting
feel
a life
apathetic,
of restless,
quiet despair.
unsettled. The
Showing a
APA,
lack
or
of
the
interest
American
in life.
Psychological Association, defines languishing
The things that used
as
to give
the
us joy
absence
no longer
of
give us
mental
joy.
health. Mentally, you're not
It's
feeling
characterized
good
by
or bad,
dissatisfaction,
just blah.
lack of engagement,
The lack of
and
focus
apathy.
makes every task
It's
you
a state
engage in
some of us
even
can find
that more
ourselves
hard
stuck in
or difficult.
Synonyms
For some
such as
people, the
wasting
new
away
normal is
reflect the loss
alternating
of
between
energy
feelings of
associated
fatigue
with
and
languishing.
lack of motivation to
Languishers
experience quick
aren't
bursts of
thriving.
energy when starting
They're just
something
getting through
new,
the day,
only to
They
feel
have barely enough
unmotivated
energy
again
to complete
soon
their
after.
tasks and find
You
little
might
enjoyment
be
in
asking
life.
yourself, why do I need
These
to do
are all the
this? Or what's the
symptoms
point?
of invisible
You know
illnesses.
that you're not functioning at full
Stress
capacity.
can easily add up
You
to a
might have
state
been an
of
extrovert,
languishing.
a bubbly type,
After
and now you're
seeing
just finding
millions
yourself
get sick,
withdrawing.
Die,
According
lose
to Corey
jobs,
Keyes, who
homes,
actually
plans for the
identified the
future,
term languishing,
people can become
it's emptiness and
desensitized to the
stagnation,
experience of trauma,
constituting a life of in the form
quiet
of natural
despair.
disasters, for instance.
The APA, or the
In
American
reality,
Psychological
they could be suffering
Association,
from a
defines
pandemic
languishing
post-stress disorder
as the absence
This
of
was
mental
identified
health.
with the Italian frontline
It's characterized by
workers.
dissatisfaction,
Now, with
lack of
vaccines becoming
engagement,
readily
and
available,
apathy.
and with the mask
It's a
mandate
state some
being
of us can
lifted,
find
we
ourselves
might feel
stuck in.
gratitude, relief,
Synonyms such
enthusiasm
as
about
wasting
coming to
away
the end of the
reflect the
pandemic,
loss of energy
but
associated
you may
with
also
languishing.
be experiencing an out-of-sync
Languishers
feeling
aren't
of languishing.
thriving. They're just getting through
These
the
feelings
day.
could add a
They
layer
have
of
barely
embarrassment
enough
or
energy
guilt
to complete
on top
their
of everything
tasks
else
and find little enjoyment in
Grant
life.
calls languishing the neglected
These are all the
middle
symptoms
child of mental health. I
invisible
like that.
illnesses.
It's the void
Stress
between
can
depression
easily
and
add up
flourishing,
to a state of languishing.
the absence of well-being.
After seeing millions
The
get
term
sick,
was coined
die,
by
lose
Corey
jobs,
Keyes, who describes
homes,
it as
plans for the
apathy,
future.
listlessness, loss of
People can
interest
become
in life with no reward
desensitized
in
to the
sight.
experience of trauma.
When languishing, we feel bland,
in the form of natural
we lack
disasters, for
motivation.
instance.
We're not
In
flourishing.
reality, they could be suffering
And
from
you know,
a
we
pandemic
aren't
post-stress
experiencing the
disorder.
symptoms of depression,
This was
anxiety, or
identified
burnout,
with the
but
Italian
neither are we
frontline
feeling
workers.
resilient at the top of
Now,
our
with
game,
vaccines
or
becoming
capable of
readily
thriving,
available, and with
when
the mask mandate
languishing
being lifted,
we're likely to cut
we
back
might
on
feel
work and in fact
gratitude,
calling
relief,
sick.
enthusiasm about coming to the
Flourishing
end of
is
the
the opposite
pandemic,
of languishing
but
and leaves
you
us
may
feeling
also
positive,
be experiencing
energized,
an out-of-sync
sense
feeling
of
of
control in
languishing.
life. Purpose
These
and
feelings could
significance.
add a layer of embarrassment or guilt.
We feel
on
a
top
feeling of
everything mastery
else.
over our future.
Grant calls
We enjoy good
languishing
social
the neglected
relations.
middle child of
Languishing,
mental
on the
health.
other
I like
hand,
that.
creates difficulty
It's the
with
void
focus,
between
with
depression and
concentration. And notice
flourishing.
we're not depressed. The absence of well-being.
Languishing is a state
The term
in
was
which an
coined
individual is
by
devoid
Corey
of
Keyes,
positive emotion
who
toward
describes
life
it as
and is
apathy,
not functioning
listlessness,
well,
loss of
either
interest
physically,
in life with no
psychologically,
reward
or
in sight.
socially.
When
And has not
languishing,
been
we feel
depressed
bland.
during the past
We
year.
lack motivation. We're not flourishing. And you know, we aren't
saying it's not
experiencing the
depression.
symptoms
How
of
is it
depression,
different for
anxiety, or burnout.
Yeah,
But neither are we feeling
that's
resilient
a good question because it
at the
really
top
is.
of
And
our
you know
game what, Alan?
or
It's
capable
also
of thriving. different
When languishing,
than burnout. But before we go
likely
there,
to
you know
cut
what I
back
found
on
is
work
some
and fact
statistics I think our listeners might enjoy.
Flourishing is the opposite
Since
of
spring of
languishing and leaves us
2020,
feeling positive,
young
energized.
adults' mental health has
sense of
declined
control
due
in
to
life,
lack of autonomy,
purpose,
job
and
loss,
significance.
college closures, decreased social interaction.
We feel a feeling of mastery
Fear, worry,
over
grief,
our
and
future.
isolation have morphed into feelings of restlessness, boredom, dissatisfaction.
Languishing, on the other hand,
The
creates
stress
difficulty
involved
with
with
focus,
re-entry,
with
such as the
concentration.
cave
And notice we're
syndrome,
not depressed.
social anxiety, fears about the
Languishing
virus,
is a
all
state in
contribute
which
to
an
high rates
individual is
of devoid
languishing.
of positive emotion
And
toward life,
and is not
on top of
functioning
that,
well, either
the
physically,
2021
psychologically, or
IP
socially.
source and has
poll
not
found
been
that 1 in
during the
5
past
adults
year.
in the United
Loved one
States
experiencing a
You're saying it's
lifestyle
not
change,
depression. How
income
is it
loss are
different
all
from
important factors,
Yeah,
including
it is.
isolation
That's a
and
good
social
question because it
distancing,
really is. And
which
you know
took
what,
away our
Alan? It's also
necessary support during the pandemic.
different than burnout.
Look,
But
an
before we go
international
there, you know
study
what I
with
found is some
participants from
statistics I
78
think our
countries
listeners might
between
enjoy.
April and June
Since
2020
spring of
found that
2020,
10% of
young
people
adults'
experienced
mental health has
languishing during the
declined due
pandemic
to lack of autonomy.
Languishing may have
Job
resulted
loss,
from
college
factors such
closures,
as decreased
stress,
social
changing
interaction,
routine,
fear,
isolation.
worry, grief, and isolation.
according
have
to Dr.
morphed
Kristen
into feelings
Neff,
of
who is a
restlessness,
self-compassion
boredom,
expert,
dissatisfaction.
languishing
The stress involved
is
with
just like you're kind of
such as
stuck.
the cave
And the
syndrome,
reason
social
languishing is getting
anxiety,
so much
fears about the
attention now
virus,
is because she
all
thinks the whole
contribute to
world is
high rates
languishing.
of languishing. A 2021 study looked at
On top of
3,600
that,
participants from
the
early, middle,
2021
and late
IP
adulthood.
source
People in the
poll
languishing
found that
state
1 in
at the start of the
5
study
adults in the
were
United States
more
is
likely to
languishing.
develop depression or
Losing a loved
anxiety
one,
within 4
experiencing a
years,
lifestyle
regardless
change,
of their
income
age
loss.
group.
And I
all
think that's a very important
factors,
statistic
including
for us to notice
isolation
when we
and
talk
social
about
distancing,
languishing. It's not
which
something
took
to
away our
minimize.
necessary support
And
during
now when
the
you ask me
pandemic.
what's the difference between
Look,
languishing
an
and depression,
international
I'd say
study with participants
in
from
addition, what's the difference
78
between that
countries
and
between
burnout? When I'm
April
saying,
and June
oh,
2020
I don't want to go
found
to
that
work.
10%
Here's
of
how it
people
goes.
experienced languishing
Depression
during
is
the pandemic.
characterized by
Languishing
emotional,
may have resulted
mental,
from factors such
behavioral,
as
and stress,
physiological
changing
symptoms,
routine,
including
isolation.
fatigue, sleeping too
Now,
much
according
or
to
too
Dr.
little,
Kristen
weight loss
Neff,
or
who
weight
is a
gain,
self-compassion
negative
expert,
feelings, negative thoughts,
languishing
suicidal
is just
thoughts.
like you're kind of stuck.
Languishing
and the
shares
reason
some of the
languishing is
symptoms
getting
with
so much
depression, such
attention
as
now is
having
because she
negative
thinks the
emotions.
whole world is languishing.
But it's also
A
characterized by
2021
not
study
feeling in
looked at
control of your life,
3,600 participants
feeling
from
that you're
early,
stagnating,
middle, and late
unable to grow
adulthood.
or change.
People in the languishing state
practicing
at the start of the study
behaviors
were more likely to develop
while
depression
languishing
or
depression
anxiety
and
within
burnout
4
share
years,
many common
regardless
symptoms.
of their age group.
They
And I
differ
think
in
that's a
cause
very
and in
important
severity.
statistic for us to
Many
notice when we
symptoms
talk about
overlap
languishing.
between
It's
the
not
three,
something to
such as
minimize.
lack of energy,
And now when you ask me
focusing,
what's the
and
difference
not
between
feeling
languishing and
optimistic.
depression, I'd say
Burnout, however, is
in addition, what's the
specifically a
difference between that and
work-related
burnout? When
phenomenon.
I'm saying, oh,
Typically,
I don't want to go
will
to work
arise
well,
because of a
here's how it
poor
goes.
work-life balance.
Depression is characterized by
isn't a good
emotional,
match for your values or
mental,
skills.
behavioral, and physiological
Languishing, on
symptoms,
the other
including
hand,
fatigue, is an
sleeping too
overall
much or
state
too little, weight
that
loss or
affects
weight
every
gain,
aspect of your
negative
life,
feelings,
personally,
negative
professionally.
thoughts,
People
suicidal
move
thoughts.
in and out of a state of
Languishing
languishing over a
shares
period
some
of
of the
days and
symptoms
weeks
with
and even
depression,
months.
such as having
There's a lack of
negative emotions,
vitality and optimism,
but
which is
it's also
associated with
characterized
true
by
well-being.
not feeling in control of your
It
life.
is of concern when you
feeling
get
that you're
stuck in the
stagnating,
feeling that you don't have the
unable to
right
grow
tools
or
to get
change,
yourself out of
and
it.
practicing isolating
Depression
behaviors.
like
While
languishing, but
depression
it is different
and burnout
in the
share
sense
many
that
common
while they're
symptoms,
similar, they
they
extend
differ
into
in
all
cause and in
all
severity.
aspects of life.
Many
Many
symptoms
symptoms
overlap between the three,
definition and
such as lack of
diagnosis of
energy,
depression,
difficulty
difficulty
focusing,
over
and
6
not
months,
feeling
according to the
optimistic.
American Psychological
Burnout,
Association.
however, is specifically a
When you're
work-related
languishing,
phenomenon.
it's difficult to set goals for the
Typically,
future.
these will arise
They look
because
at
of a poor
goals as
work-life
some of my
balance,
patients will say,
or
when
why
you're doing
bother with
work that
goals? They
isn't
aren't a good
healthy and
match for your
unhelpful,
values or skills.
I don't need to take action. Life is just
Languishing,
blah.
on the other hand,
On
is
the
an
other
overall
hand,
state
people with
that
depression,
affects every
anxiety, and
aspect of
even
your life,
alcohol or
personally,
substance
professionally.
dependence. People
Find
move in
planning
and out of a state of
helpful.
languishing
They take
over a
action to
period of
improve
days
their
and weeks and
situation
even months.
and know what
There's a lack of
outcome they want
vitality and
for their
optimism,
future.
which is
So there's a big
associated
difference
with
there
true
between the
well-being.
two. Huh?
It is of
Being
concern when
diagnosed
you
with a
get
mental
stuck
health
in the feeling
condition
that you
helps
don't have the
people to
right
know
tools to get
how to
yourself
deal
out
with their
of it.
situation. It's actually very helpful
Depression
to have
is
that diagnosis
because
like
they can
languishing
access
in it,
therapy.
but it is different in the sense that
But since
while they're
languishing
similar, they
isn't
extend into
considered
all
a mental health
all
disorder,
aspects of life
people may
to
not
have a
know
clinical
why they feel the way they
definition
do.
and
And they may
diagnosis of
not be
depression.
able
It
to
has
get
been
the help
lost
they
for
need from their
over
family
6 months,
doctor
according to
or
the
mental
American
health
Psychological
services.
Association.
Here's a typical question
When you're
we ask: how's it
languishing,
going?
it's
How are you?
difficult to set goals
And
for
it's
the
normally
future.
answered automatically with fine. Don't you say that? My patients will say, well, why bother with goals? They're unhealthy and might not be feeling fine. I don't say, oh yeah, action, life is just blah. With depression, it's easier for us to share with people how we're feeling. People with depression, anxiety, and terrible, alcohol or substance dependence. Compare that, Alan, with responses with languishers situations automatically know what outcome they want. Has to be fine because they don't know what else difference there between the two. They're not going through a life-changing critical mental condition. They're not depressed. They're not anxious. They're not deal with their situation. So it's actually very helpful to have that diagnosis. The phenomenon is called languishing, and it's important to underscore that since languishing isn't considered a mental health disorder and anxiety, people may not know why they take action and to be able to describe and they may not be able to get the help they need because when you're flourishing, which is the opposite of services. Languishing. Here's a typical question we ask: how's it going? How are you? And it's normally answered automatically with fine. Don't you say that on an emotional high? Even though when you're languishing, we might not be feeling fine. We just say, oh yeah, everything's good. Depression, on the other hand, it's easier for us to share with people how we're feeling instead of fine. I'll say, it's really terrible. I'm feeling awful. I'm depressed. So languishing, compare that, Alan, with responses with languishers. The absence of feeling good about your life. Fine has to be fine because they don't know what else feel intense sadness. They're not going through a life and loss of changing critical incident. The symptoms of anguish, they're not anxious, they're not burnt out, extreme in either direction. Instead of strong emotions, the phenomenon is called languishing, is characterized by that to underscore that neither great can turn into depression. So a person who is languishing is also able to function. It's important to take action and to lacks the describe that feeling they're having. Because when you're flourishing, which is the opposite uses the thermometer analogy, I like that one, by the way, to distinguish between languishing and depression. It's like you with your classic cars, when we get 0 degrees or neutral. But when you're languishing or positive, life is a drag. Depression, on the other hand, is when depression, on the other hand, involves feeling hopeless, goes into negative, joyless. And these negatives include feelings of hopelessness. So languishing falls in languishing is a feeling of, it's an absence of well-being, the absence of feeling good about your life. When someone is depressed, they'll often depression, feel intense sadness. DSM-5 is a clinical diagnosis. Languishing is viewed. The symptoms of languishing, on the other hand, aren't that extreme in either direction. So therein lies the definition. Instead of strong emotions, languishing is characterized by that blah feeling. Neither great nor terrible. Yes, so a person who is languishing is also able to function in everyday life on how to treat the passion. But maybe that they have. Before I go to the tips, with your permission, is it possible uses the thermometer analogy. I like that one, by the way. What are some of the telltale between languishing and depression? When you're languishing, what do you think? Languishing is when we get talk about 0 degrees or neutral. I think so. Like, what are the symptoms? Check them on yourself. Depression, by the way. I like, on the other hand, is when the temperature, you're a guinea pig, but the thermometer goes into negative numbers. And listeners, let's check it off yourselves. I did it on myself, so maybe we should all look at it. Languishing is blah today. Look, nothing. Here are some of the symptoms. Here's your checklist. Is a feeling lack of purpose, sadness, loss of meaning. Depression, according to DSM-5, is a clinical diagnosis. Irritability, language, difficulty with focus, concentration, memory, cynicism. So therein lies the definitions. Unable to describe what you're feeling. Lack of optimism.
Disorder, is it treatable?
Feeling as though you're looking at yourself on the outside, looking in, just going through the motions. We have tips on how to treat fulfillment. But maybe before I go to the tips, with your permission, is it possible for our listeners to look at what are some of the telltale activities you used to enjoy? When you're languishing, focusing on avoiding negative things rather than striving to find positive things. I think so. Like, what are the symptoms? Feeling detached. Check them on yourself, by the way. I like guinea pigs. Joylessness. I'm not saying you're a guinea pig, but let's look at it for a minute. And listeners, changes in let's check it off yourselves. I did it on myself, so maybe we should all look at it. Were we feeling blah today? Look, here are some of the symptoms. Here's your checklist. Struggling with simple self-care tasks that I've had patients have difficulty, loss of interest, getting out of feeling disconnection from showering, others, irritability, difficulty with focus, concentration, memory, languishing, and they don't know why. And the people around them get irritated with them, unable to describe feeling what you're feeling. Restlessness, lack of optimism, you call in sick, feeling as numbness. You're looking at yourself missing outside, and you can't figure out, you can't pinpoint exactly what it is, lack but fulfillment. Something's missing. Apathy and growth doesn't seem to be a possibility. You're disappointed in yourself, foggy thinking, feeling overwhelmed with life, interest in activities you used to enjoy. Focusing on
Above
avoiding
all, you
negative
feel
things
everything
rather
is
than
pointless.
striving
Your
to
job is
find positive
pointless in the
things.
grand scheme of things. Who
Feeling
cares?
detached. And you know what? You feel you can't rely on
Joylessness. I just
anyone
have
but
to get
yourself.
through the day.
So that leads to even more
Stagnation.
introversion. Changes in your
Are
appetite
you
and
asking,
sleep.
what does a person
Isolating
do with
yourself.
this?
By the way, how
Especially
did you check out
from
Alan? Close family and friends.
Well, I think I'm okay.
Low self-worth. Struggling
That's
with
all right,
simple
me too.
self-care
Because I have
tasks
a
that I've
purpose
had
every day.
patients have difficulty
Meeting
Oh, there you
with
go.
you,
getting
of
out of
course.
their pajamas,
Doing this podcast is part
showering,
of my
for
day to look
instance,
forward to. And-
hygiene.
But
This is
if you
hard for
don't
them
have
when they're
anything to
going
look
through
forward to,
languishing, and they
if
don't
you
know
look
why.
upon things as
And the
being
people
negative, like
around
what
them
is
get
going to
irritated
happen to
with
me
them.
today,
A feeling
I
of
could see
restlessness.
where you wouldn't want to get out of your
call in
pajamas.
sick. Numbness.
Correct.
Life
there's
is missing something and you can't
to
figure
look
out, you
forward
can't
to.
pinpoint
And it's
exactly
really
what it is.
sad
But
because
I call it
something's
the
missing.
invisible illness.
And growth
because you're
doesn't
not
seem
in
to be
a
a
cast.
possibility.
You're not
You're
in a cast
disappointed
from
in
your
yourself.
toes up
You're
to your
feeling
neck.
overwhelmed with
So
life
people,
and its
if I were in a
problems.
cast like that, you'd say, oh, poor Joan. But what if I
Above
were
all, you
feeling
feel
languishing
everything is
and I look the
pointless. Your
way I
job is
do,
pointless
and
in
you
the
say,
grand scheme
what's
of
wrong with
things.
her?
Who
She's got
cares?
everything going for her.
And you
Get
know
with
what?
it.
You feel
Get
you
on
can't
with the
rely on
program.
anyone but yourself.
People, that's
So
the
that leads to
invisible
even
illness
more
that a person might have.
introversion.
And it is something to be
Are you
very
asking,
careful about.
what does a person do
because
with this?
By the way,
Some
how did
people
you
say
check
the whole
out
world
Alan?
is languishing right now. That's
Well, I
what
think I'm
Mr.
okay.
Neff said, and I found that hilarious.
That's all right.
say,
Me
however,
too.
Because I
But
have
a lot of
purpose every
people are
day.
feeling like mashed
Meeting
potato
you, of
without
course.
the
Doing this
butter
podcast
and the
is part of
cream,
my day to look forward
blah.
to.
Or
but if you
without
don't
the
have
salt.
anything to look
Or I
forward
think
to,
of
if you look
a
upon
rose.
things as
You know,
being
Alan,
negative,
a
like what
rose,
is going to
and you
happen
put it
to
in
me
water, and
today,
it looks so
I could
pretty. And then
see
one day you
where
wake
you
up and
wouldn't want
look
to
at
get
the
out of your
rose,
pajamas.
its head is bent.
Correct.
And
there's
that's
nothing
languishing, I say. Use
look
that as a
forward to.
metaphor.
And it's really
and guess what?
sad
You can
because
put it in the
I call
proper
it the invisible
environment,
illness. And
because
you
you're
know
not
what?
in a
It'll
cast.
gradually come
You're not in a
alive again.
cast from
I've
your
seen that
toes
happen, by
up
the
to
way.
your neck.
And the same
So
is true
people,
for languishers.
if I were in a
You
cast like
can.
that, you'd say,
What can
poor
we do?
Joan.
Here's what
But
I'm
what if I
suggesting.
were
Exactly
feeling
what you said in the
languishing
morning.
and I look the way
Have
I
a
do?
plan. Have a
I just say,
purpose.
what's wrong with her?
Find
She's got
ways to
everything
connect
going
with the
for her. Get
community.
with it. Get on with the
Volunteer
program.
your services.
People, that's
Do
the
acts of
invisible
kindness for
illness that
others.
a person
Helping
might have.
someone
And
at
it is
work
something
is
to be
possible.
very
Giving someone
careful
a
about.
compliment.
Because practice
Some people say the whole world
because
is
when we
languishing right
prime
now.
our
That's what
brains
Mr.
to look
Neff
for
said, and I found
positives,
that hilarious.
we start
I
feeling
would
better.
say, however,
that a lot of
so go
people
on a
are
treasure
feeling
hunt
like
with
mashed
me.
potato
Find
without
things, I say, go on the highway
butter
to
and the cream,
gratitude first thing in the morning.
Blah.
And you'd be
Or
amazed
without the
at
salt.
what you'll
Or I
find.
think of a rose.
This one I really like because this
and
is
you put
not
it in
mine.
water,
It's Dan
and it
Siegel
looks so
talks
pretty.
about
And then
this
one
in
day you wake
mindfulness,
up and
and
look
he
at the
says,
rose,
acknowledge
its
your
head is
feelings
bent.
without
And that's
judgment.
languishing, I say.
aware of
Use
what
that as a
you're feeling.
metaphor.
Focus on the present.
You can
through
put it in the
meditation,
proper
breathing exercises,
environment,
yoga, whatever.
and you know what?
Or just
It'll
sit
gradually
quietly and
become
become
alive
aware of
again.
what you're
I've seen that
feeling,
happen,
and
by the
don't
way.
judge it with
And
your
the same is
shoulds.
true for languishers.
You can.
And that
what
will
can we do?
lead
Here's
to
what I'm
life
suggesting.
satisfaction
Exactly
and
what you
mood
said in the
improvement.
morning. Have a
I say
plan.
be
Have a
curious.
purpose.
Pick up a new hobby.
Find ways to connect
But
with the
one that
community.
fits with your personality.
Volunteer your services.
Don't pick up
Do
chess
acts of kindness
if
for
that's
others.
not for
Helping
you.
someone
You
at
might
work
prefer
is
to go on a
possible.
hike.
Giving someone
Or as
a
people say to me,
compliment.
okay, Joan, take a hike.
Practice
Okay, I like
gratitude.
that. I'll do that.
Because when we
I'm more
prime our
physically
brains to look
oriented,
for
that will give
positives,
me joy.
we start feeling
If I'm
better.
more cerebral, maybe
Okay?
I need to sit
So go on a
and
treasure
look
hunt
at
with me.
Netflix, binge
Find
on
things, I say,
Netflix,
go on the highway to gratitude first thing in the
learn a
morning.
new
And you'd
language.
be amazed.
These are all things
what
that we
you'll
can
find.
do. Find a hobby that fits with your
This one I
personality and
really
your time
like because this
constraints.
is not mine.
Do
It's
acts
Dan
of
Siegel
kindness for
talks
others.
about
You know
this
that
in
I call it
mindfulness.
happy
And
money.
he says,
When you spend on
acknowledge your
others, you get a
feelings
bigger bang
without
for your
judgment.
buck. Go
Be aware
outdoors.
of what you're feeling.
Focus on the present.
Look
through
out
meditation,
there. See
breathing
what's there. Go to a
exercises,
beach.
yoga,
Go to
whatever.
a park. Or just
go to a body of
quietly
water.
Be
Do a
aware of
power
what you're
walk.
feeling and don't judge it
You know
with your
what?
shoulds.
COVID-19 forced us to spend
And that
too
will
much time locked
lead
up
to life
indoors,
satisfaction
masked,
and mood improvement.
and in our heads.
I say be curious.
Pick up a new
Reward
hobby.
yourself for every small
But
step
one
you've
that
made
fits
today.
with your personality.
At work, or
Don't
in
pick
your
up
home.
chess if that's
Journal
not
what
for
brought
you.
you joy
You
today
might
and
prefer
add
to go
that
on
to
a
your
hike.
weekly
Or as
routine.
people say to me, okay, Joan,
Practice
take a hike.
self-compassion
Okay, I like
instead
that.
of
I'll do that
self-criticism.
because I'm more physically oriented, that will give me joy. If I'm more cerebral, share your experience with trusted friends. Netflix, binge on Netflix. Reduce screen time. That's a really good one. Focus on today. Language, said Alan, these are all present. What did I have to do today? What do I have to do? Your personality and this is a great one. What did you do in the past to deal with similar feelings of happy money? When you spend on others, you get a bigger bang for your buck. Flow is when the experience of being completely immersed in any activity. See what's there. Go to a beach, go to a park, go to a body of water, and you can lose self-consciousness because you're focused on COVID-19 and creativity. Spend too much time locked up indoors. Artwork, when you're at work, and in our when you're doing something in which your skill set and your abilities for every small step, and there's a challenge. It could occur when you're surfing, writing, rock climbing. Journal what brought you joy today and add that to your weekly routine. Social connection is the best. Self-compassion instead of self-criticism. But, and I need to underscore this does not include online connection. I had a parent come to see me about her child, and she said, I'm really worried about my 19-year-old. He has no friends and he's online with his friends all the time. As you said, Alan, or on the present. What did I have to do today? What do I have to do? That social connection, the one-on-one that you need. What did you do in the past? Studies show that increased online socializing was associated with languishing. Practice flow. Flow is when the experience of savor, completely immersed in any activity of connection that will prime your brain again to focus on positives. And you can lose self-consciousness because you're focused on negativity, skills and creativity. This can happen when you're doing artwork, when you're at work, when you're doing something in which your skill set and your abilities match. So we need to retrain our minds to appreciate what's good. When you're surfing, writing, rock climbing, we do this. These are all retraining we do, the easier it becomes. Social connection is the best. I say develop short-term manageable goals. But I need to underscore this does not include online connection. I had a parent come to see me about another child, and she said, I'm really worried about my 19-year-old. He has no friends and he's online with his friends all the time. Stop. And I said, well, that's a problem. Often because that's not going to say more that social connection, the one-on-one that you need. But what about if you're not feeling fine? In fact, a study showed that increased online socializing was associated with languishing. And to the other. Another thing you can do is to savor. The last thing I would say is invest in satisfying connection that will prime your brain again to focus on connections, because we are wired with a negativity bias to look for negatives. The saber-toothed tiger, for instance.
Epidemic of loneliness that you've talked about in previous podcasts.
So we need to retrain our minds to appreciate what's good.
Disconnected, they're more likely to languish, would you say?
We do this, the more retraining we do, the easier it becomes. I would definitely say develop short-term manageable goals. Because if you're isolated to begin with, and then you don't know how to connect with others, languishing would certainly come into play, because to stop saying fine when someone says how are you, engage in that monologue in your head. Often without people will get feedback from someone else, or at least what we're doing right now, watching each other's nonverbal facial expressions. You don't have that if you're stuck in your home. And to the other.
Well, I benefited from reading your book, Happy is the New Healthy.
The last thing I would say is invest in satisfying social connections, because
you can diagnose the deficiencies and problems in your own life, and then you can move forward by engaging with people on a different level. The epidemic of loneliness that you've talked about in previous podcasts plays into this. If people are disconnected, they're more likely to languish, would you say?
Good point, yes. I would definitely say that's a very good point, because if you're isolated to begin with, and then you don't know how to connect with others, languishing would certainly come into play, because you have more time to engage in that monologue in your head without getting feedback from someone else, or at least what we're doing right now, watching each other's nonverbal facial expressions. You don't have that if you're stuck in your home.
Well, I benefited from reading your book, Happy is the New Healthy. It told me that you can change your own channel. You can diagnose the deficiencies and problems in your own life, and then you can move forward by engaging with people on a different level. Get a hobby. Go meet people at a club. I met with a neighbor today who previously told me that his wife died 3 years ago, and he's got real property, so he bought a tractor, and he's landscaping his property. He's got something to do every day. And so I think he was languishing because he went into a tailspin when he lost his wife, but he's not now. He's out on his tractor. He's doing beautiful work on his own property. And he also bought a hot rod. He bought an old car, and this is how I know him. And so he told me specifically he bought that so he could meet people, and that's working for him. So whether or not you're in a sewing club, a book club, kiting club, whatever it is, it sounds to me like it's really good if you can engage, and it would lift you out of that situation where you're languishing, where you don't have a purpose in life. And I think for my life, people have helped me through any downturns that I've had psychologically.
Yes. And I think your neighbor is very lucky to have you around him, because you can give him the contact and the impetus to move forward while accepting the the fact that grief is never over, but that he can take it and move forward with this and grow.
It's interesting. I didn't know he was my neighbor until I met him at a car show. And he said, "Oh, you're my neighbor. You just live on the street above me." And so now he came up here and I went down to his place. He showed me his tractor. He showed me his landscaping. And now we've got a relationship. And that's great, because when you have rural properties, you don't necessarily know your neighbors. But now we know each other, and he's just a great guy. And I've made a new friend, and hopefully he has too.
Yes, and your point is well taken. Unfortunately, nowadays people don't know their neighbors. We've become so isolated and so within ourselves and our little group, our inner circle, that we forget to reach out. Whereas in the past, we had a village, so everyone knew everyone else. We all got together. Not anymore. And that actually exacerbates feelings of languishing as well, because it's like, why bother? And who will notice anyway?
A lot of people feel their village is through social media, but that's not personal contact.
That's what I was saying earlier on when I said online contact is not contact. In fact, they did an interesting study in which they found that people have less difficulty saying no to an invitation on email versus getting on the telephone and saying it in person. It's easier to back out of things. It's also impersonal, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, parents texting their own kids right in the house to get them to come to dinner. It's the only way they can get their attention. So it's a different world, and it's not necessarily a more social world just because of social media connections. Anything else you'd like to say on languishing, Dr. Neehall?
I'd just like to say to everyone, if you are feeling this way, I would really encourage you to seek professional help. We're very lucky to have skilled psychologists, social workers, coaches in every province and in the States. Bye now.
Very good advice. Thank you, Dr. Joan Neehall, for this insight. And thank you for joining our podcast. We'll see you next time. Bye now.
Thank you for joining this discussion on happiness. We hope this helps to inspire you to lead a more joyful life. To dive deeper into the subject of happiness, be sure to check out Dr. Neehall's book, Happy is the New Healthy, available as an ebook or hardcover. For additional resources, visit our website at drneehall.com. Until next time, stay happy.